Good morning, everyone. I'm Madhavi Joshi, and I work with Center for Environment Education. Welcome to the inaugural plenary happening as part of the three-day international conference, which is called Educating for Sustainability Action. Um, Dealing with the triple planetary crisis requires urgent action at various levels by communities, decision makers, educators, government, and businesses. The years 2025 to 2030 are crucial for SDG progress in achieving the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. This period presents an opportunity to fully harness the power of education for sustainability action, especially to highlight pedagogy and resources and identify the need to develop strategic education interventions. This international conference is a crucial platform in this regard. The conference is organized into plenary sessions, which will provide the overall context and set the tone for discussions, thematic parallel sessions, which focus on specific areas, paper presentations by researchers, and an exhibition area, which you will be able to see during lunch. We welcome you all to the conference and look forward to the outcomes that come after the discussions that happen over the next 3 days. I would now like to invite all the dignitaries on the dais. Before I do that, I would like to introduce them briefly. We have with us Shri Sanjay Kumarji, Secretary, Department of School Education and Literacy, Ministry of Education, Government of India. Thank you for joining us, sir. Dr. Ashok Khosla, who is Chairman, Development Alternatives, and also chairs our Governing Council at the center, and has been a very inspiring presence as part of our Governing Council meetings and advises CEE quite actively. Kartikeya Bhai, our director, founder and director of the Center for Environment Education. He's under his leadership, CEE has significantly influenced environmental education, both formally and informally. And we work under his guidance. And we, as you know, we have completed 40 years this year, and this conference is a part of that celebration and also reflection of what as an institution and as partners we're doing in terms of environmental education and education for sustainable development. Dr. Cheryl Charles, she is an innovator, author, organizational executive, and educator living in the USA. She's Nature for All co-chair, co-founder, president, and CEO emerita of the Children and Nature Network, and member of IUCN CEC USA. So, welcome, Cheryl. Dr. Balakrishna Pisupati, head of UNEP India. He is the country head and has nearly 30 years of experience in conservation and development at national, regional, and international levels. Professor Charles Hopkins, he is UNESCO chair in reorienting education towards sustainability at York University in Canada. He has collaborated with UNESCO, UNU, and higher education institutions and ministries of education across many continents in the fields of education and sustainability. And he's been, we have a long-standing relationship with Professor Charles Hopkins. Thank you for coming. Ms. Leslie Jones, President, Foundation for Environmental Education, and she's been leading the development of the Gaia 2030 strategy, a 10-year plan to advance global sustainability. Professor Atsufumi Yokoi, Vice President, Okayama University, Professor, UNESCO Chairholder, FRSA Japan. Thank you so much, Atsufumi, for joining us. Dr. Presha Ramswarup, she's Director at Center for Researching Education and Labor, University of Witwatersrand, Johannesburg, South Africa. And Presha has been involved in extensive research on green skills and works very closely on vocational education and training programs focusing on green skills and green jobs. Thank you, Presha, for joining us. And last but not the least, our youth representative, Mansi Thakur. She is a United Nations India Yuva advocate and a UNEP Tunza Eco Generation TTP Tide Turner Plastic Challenge champion. And she has been working very actively in empowering youth and driving environmental action in the place in Gujarat where she comes from. It's an eminent panel, and we are very honored to have all of you here. And I would now request all of you to please inaugurate the conference led by Sanjay sir to light the lamp, please. May now request Dr. Ashok Khosla to chair the session and also give his opening remarks.
Is it on? It is on. Thank you, Madhvi, for the introduction of all the people on the dais. And I want to welcome all of you to this very emblematic occasion. It's deja vu for me because my day job is in an organization called Development Alternatives, which celebrated its 40th anniversary last year. So I've been through this, so I have a little practice, and I'm going to share just a few thoughts with you in the 5 minutes that I have about what it takes to build a world-class, top-level organization. Last evening, we had a family gathering of about as many people as here, because we're a big family, of the present and past staff members, of some of the board members, and indeed some of the visiting dignitaries who were here. And we had a wonderful chat, stories about how it all began and how we built it up, stories that bind and glue a family together. The metaphor of family kept coming up in almost all the stories, but it's not a metaphor, it was a reality. We're all joined at the hip, and we have an intellectual sharing that brings us together and has basically meant to be seen as a joint membership of a family. But the idea of a family also has a component of a DNA, of what binds us together. And our DNA is the intellectual and value system commitment to a better world, a more harmonious world, and a world in which we live jointly with nature in harmony and in productivity. What we recalled last evening was how important it is for each individual to be a member of a team that works in a very synergistic way and builds up a presence and an impact around the world on the way people think. The world is, of course, in a state of crisis, several crises, the so-called polycrises, which all of you know about, and I don't want to repeat. And it's imperative that the younger people in the world realize that it's their world and they are going to have to live in it and not merely just exist or fight their way to existence. And it is them that we rely on to teach the older people, their parents, their teachers, their extended family of friends, that we all have to behave differently if we're all going to survive. So the purpose of this center, the Center for Environment Education, is really to bring about that change, not just in knowledge, but in value systems, in the way we behave and deal with the world around us. And I think many of you who've come from overseas and from different parts of India recognize that this organization has had that kind of an impact that will multiply on its own through the kinds of creation of sensitivities that we've been able to bring about. I won't go more into detail about the subject, but I do think that it would be remiss of me to talk about a little bit of the other family, the real physical DNA family that brought this presence about. Karthik is an old friend, and that may be why I'm here as chairman of his board, but he's also an old colleague with whom I've shared a great deal of intellectual and personal contact. But it's also with his family that I'm very close, and I would be remiss of me, and I don't want to embarrass him, to say that while he himself is not just the head of this big enterprise, but is also a major business person in his own right, runs a major business house in parallel to this, and it's quite admirable that he can manage to succeed in both endeavors. But more important than that, we're sitting in surroundings that are the legacy of one of the great sons of India, his father, Vikram Sarabhai. Dr. Sarabhai was a true institution builder. Since the independence of India, there's probably been no one who made such an impact on institutions, all the way from village-level science to space science. Vikram Sarabhai had an impact. And I think his greatest impact in some ways was his foresight, his acquiring the land and the people and the institutions that built not just Ahmedabad, but the whole of the country. And I'm really grateful that I got a chance to know him. And I can't really leave out Kartike's mother, who was instrumental in helping design and start and breathe life into this institution, CEE. So, as I say, without meaning to embarrass Kartike, who does not believe this to be a family enterprise, this is a major contribution to a global public institution. But nevertheless, I think we need to recognize the major contribution that not only he, but his parents and his family made. And I think we can all be very grateful for that. And thank you.
Thank you.
Kartike.
Thank you, Dr. Khosla. May I now request Dr. Cheryl Charles to say a few words. Oh, my bad. I'm sorry. Apologies. May I request Shri Kartike Sarabhai, our founder director, to set the agenda and talk about the conference.
Thank you. Thank you. Is it audible at the back? Yeah. Thank you, Madhvi, and thank you, Ashokji, for those comments. I want to especially thank Shri Sanjay Kumar, who is it mic working? Yeah. I especially wanted to also thank Shri Sanjay Kumar. We had a meeting. He wanted to know what it was about, but readily agreed. And it is so important, sir, that you are here today and are inaugurating it. Our history goes back, as Ashok said, many years when there was nothing on this campus. And that year, which my father passed away, there was just one tree planted, but it happened to be a peepal tree, and peepal is the tree of learning. So it was very significant, and it stands majestically right at the top of this hill. And then a lot of plantation happened. We worked very closely with the forest department, and all around were fields and people who were cattle herders, and they would bring their cattle in and nothing would grow. And then we had a discussion with them to say that we are trying to build this institution. You can come and have water, you can pick the berries, but don't bring your cattle. And from the next day, it stopped. And it showed us the power of communication, that when you take people into confidence, they in fact respond in that way. This institution, as I said, people were asking us, why are you doing something so far away from Ahmedabad? And our subject was far away, and so was our land, and so was our institution. Today, if you see Ahmedabad, we are somewhere at the center of the city. And the subject itself has also come to the center of world discussion because of the crisis, which whether they accept it or not. Last night's news showed fires in California. Every day, there's not a day which goes by without being actually understanding and seeing how this triple crisis is affecting us. When we brought out the first bird book, and my son Mohol used to love to see vultures, and it was part of our first volume, which was Common Birds of India. And when we came up for reprinting it, the studio asked me which book should we put it in, because by now it had become the rare birds. of India with 93% loss in a matter of a few years. And that is the level of crisis. It's not something which you just read about, but it's something which everyone is feeling. So that was the enormous task which we have. And right from the beginning, we had the honor of working with the Ministry of Education, then known as the Ministry of Human Resource Development. But, sir, we've been partners to you, and the Ministry of Education, right from the day one, said, don't think you are MOE, you are part of MOEF, you are as much part of our MOE. And that's how we've had that relationship in developing this. Today, India, first of all, the creation of the center itself showed India's commitment to have a center of excellence in education as a focus. Everywhere else, education is a theme in otherwise an environment center. So that was itself a commitment. The Supreme Court further enhanced it based on the Constitution that every formal program does need environment. But more recently, the National Educational Policy of 2020 and all that is followed is redoing the textbooks and the teaching methodology and everything else. And it is at the cutting edge, I think, of world thinking in what is being prepared. We have the honor of, many of my colleagues are here from the curriculum area group on environment education. And this conference, we hope, will also enhance and bring in several knowledge into that. The recently concluded COPs on climate change, biodiversity, and CCD all have emphasized education as something which is required. But the articulation of what that means, what is the roadmap for education, is something which many people, IUCN, CEC, some people who are not here today with us, have said that let this conference come up with at least the first draft of what we need to do going forward. And in that, this institution, right from the beginning, has believed in partnerships, and we are very fortunate in having all of you and many others as close partners. We now have industry, many people from industry who are close partners as well. And I think there's a task ahead, and in this conference helps us. So thank you very much.
May I now request Dr. Cheryl Charles.
Thank you very much. It is certainly my pleasure to be here. I'll talk a little bit about the theme of this conference, Educating for Sustainability Action, and I'll build on what Kartikeya just said. How we get to action is at least in part through partnerships, through collaboration, through working with one another respectfully and purposefully. It's truly my pleasure to be here. I am one of those internationally who had the good fortune to meet Kartikeya in 1984 when he first founded the Center for Environment Education, and then made my first visit here in 1987 when there really were a few straggly bougainvillea on a sandy landscape and a couple of peacocks walking around, and a mighty and powerful and talented group of people who said, we're going to do this. We're going to create this center, working out of a small cottage on the grounds and working together. It's been truly my inspiration to get to know the people of the Center for Environment Education for now 40 years. And truly my pleasure to be here again to help with this particular conference. Yesterday there was one session that I attended, and it was on Tide Turner's Plastic Challenge. That is Tide Turner's Plastic Challenge, focusing on how we get the plastic out of the oceans and other waterways. I mention it now because it's a perfect example of the partnerships that make our work effective and which we need to continue to aspire to. A couple of concepts that I'll share with you. I always look to natural systems, to nature itself, to help me guide my work. There'll be a new publication coming out from the International Union for Conservation of Nature, where I work closely as a volunteer and have for decades, serving on the steering committee for one of the commissions and co-chair internationally of Nature for All. The publication will be a guide to nature-based leadership and ecological approach. And what I mean by that is we literally look to nature. For example, diversity, an indicator of a healthy ecosystem. So let's honor and celebrate diversity and incorporate in that in our work, in our institutional, organizational building. Another example is niche, the idea that everyone has a contribution to make. Keep that in mind when you think of your partner organizations. It's not about competition in this case, it's about cooperation. So we can look to nature as a guide for resilient, adaptive organizations, and I think the Center for Environment Education exemplifies that. So I wish the center continuing success and good works for a long time to come.
Thank you, Dr. Cheryl. I may now request Dr. Balakrishna Pishupati, Head UNEP India.
Thank you very much, and good morning, colleagues. Let me first congratulate the Center for Environment Education, who is celebrating their 40th anniversary. Greetings from the United Nations Environment Program, and we have had a long-standing collaboration, and we expect to continue and strengthen the collaboration further. And of course, those of you who are on the dais and those who are in the audience, you're all experts working on the area of environment education for many years. But I was coming from the headquarters Nairobi and transitioning to work in India. If there is one thing which I really feel proud, not just as a representative of UNEP, but also being an Indian, is the trust India have had with education at all levels. Today we speak of experiential learning, but the entire ethos for centuries in terms of education in India is based on experiential learning. The entire Gurukul system is based on that. But of course, environmental education in India also has a very, very important and big cultural connotation as well. But over a period of time, thanks to globalization, thanks to the reach, thanks to us making the world as small as it can get as of today in terms of our outreach, understanding education and also practicing environment education more specific, we are in a situation where we are still trying to find new answers to a number of old questions that we already have had. I'd like to touch upon just about 3 or 4 specific points from both UNEP perspective, looking at education as an important tool or an enabler for sustainable development in the world to come. And if there is one thing which certainly is driving a lot of thinking and research today, is the entire issue of the relevance of environment education from the social science, social consciousness perspective. Today we talk about values, and values are always changing, and the environment educational value is something which is not many times, unfortunately, high on the agenda. So if there is one thing as environmental educators that we need to think of, is that how do we push that element of values related to environment education up on the ladder, and that's where some of the outcomes of these kinds of discussions are going to be very, very important. A lot of time when we look at environment education today, we seem to be focusing more on providing the information, which is consolidating and cataloging the data and information, than working on the knowledge part of it. I think that is something which definitely needs to have a very, very important focus in the days and years to come, because just data and facts are not alone important for bringing about that behavioral and social change that is required for us, not just as people who are working in the area, and those also who actually are not still converted in terms of looking at the importance of environmental education. The third element of it is how do we disaggregate environmental consciousness. Environmental education provides a very, very important opportunity for us to do that disaggregation as efficiently as possible, and that is why it is very important that we actually try to look at learning from the practitioners. Today, if you take the indigenous people, local communities, people who work on the field, a lot of time we attempt to train them, but then I think we should also have a conversation on how do we learn from them in terms of their practices, because they have had the best experience of dealing with challenges and elements of it. And the other point is, how do we mainstream environment education? Because environment education is not about people who work in environmental sciences, who work in botany, zoology, or life sciences. Today, environment or environmental aspects are important to be mainstreamed into a number of different areas. Today, architecture has so much to learn from biodiversity conservation. We have a multi-billion-dollar industry that looks at biomimicry, where today entrepreneurial development is based on learning from nature. So mainstreaming environment education and making it as a part of a number of streams of education is something very important. And lastly and importantly, for all of this to happen, in as much as we address and reach out to students and train them, and the youth to train them and orient them, it is equally important that we also train our teachers. Because if the teachers are not equipped with those transformations, it is going to be too difficult in terms of the days to come. So certainly from the UN Environment Program, 3 areas that we would like to focus in the years to come is the work on mainstreaming, is the work on behavioral change or behavioral sciences using environment education, and lastly and importantly, learning from the practitioners. So good luck with your deliberations, and once again, thanks Dr. Karthikeya for the opportunity to be here from UNAP. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Balakrishna. May I now request Professor Charles Hopkins to say a few words.
Great, thank you very much. Yeah. First of all, I would like to thank Dr. Kushlov for, when he was in 1983 sent down to check out this idea of CEE as a government official to see whether it made sense and it should go forward. And he agreed. He spent 2 days looking into the whole concept, and he is the one who approved it. I thanked him very much last night for doing that, and he said, well, it was a no-brainer. And I pointed out that not all government officials can recognize a no-brainer, even when they're right in front of them. Right? So at any rate, let me switch back then. Karthikeya and I also go back almost 40 years. We were young people in leadership and believing that we could perhaps make a difference. 40 years later, we're still afflicted with the same problem. We want to change, to try and do the very best that we can. Karthikeya has had a much greater success. I was thinking in preparing this, the kind of change and adaptation that Karthikeya has made, because we both started out, well, I started out in outdoor education, and then in the 60s along came the idea of environmental education and then experiential education and all the rest. But Karthikeya, in order to take the broad concept and make it locally relevant, let me just tell you a couple of the things that he did. On a national level, he came up with the idea we could teach about biodiversity by selecting a national microbe. Can you imagine that? Every country has a national bird, a national flower, and so on. But he said, if you really want to understand biodiversity, you have to start at the very beginning. And so the selection of a national microbe. To do it, all he needed was a train. And he was able to go and get a train from the government and take it across the country. But he also, looking at poverty, working in the rural areas, and bringing back the traditional knowledge of water holes and cleaning the water holes and providing and so on. He worked with snake charmers, right, to help them in their poverty by turning them into a band or an orchestra for weddings. I think of all the wonderful, funny lines you could have about bringing in a snake charming band to your wedding. You know? But he wasn't limited to national scene. Kartikeya has taken, with, of course, the staff. It's not a one-man show. Right? With the staff, they have become an international lighthouse, working with, whenever it comes up, what are we going to do at UNESCO, at UNEP, United Nations University, and so on. In these 40 years, we've built CEE into this international beacon, this lighthouse. Now, the reason I'm saying all this is because we're in troubled times again. Yeah? The world is shifting to the right politically. And social justice, environmental justice, economic justice will be in threat. We are going to have to rethink again as to how are we going to reposition what we say, what we do. Right? And so the challenge is for all of us to again band together, think, share ideas, and so on, in order for us to move forward. For our education systems are going to be transformed. Do we transform them by design or by disaster? Right? So all of us who have made the travel to be here today, let's all share, work together, and take on these new challenges in the spirit of CEE. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Charles Hopkins. We now request Ms. Leslie Jones to say a few words. You could speak from there if you want to. Okay.
Thanks, Mandy. You're welcome. Good morning, everybody. Sorry, frog in my throat. Oh. I was talking too much last night, I think. Is that good? You can hear me? Okay. So good morning. And first of all, can I just say how wonderful it was to be part of the celebrations, the memories, the learning of last night. And I felt very honoured and proud to be part of that and your 40 years anniversary. And I'm also very honoured to be here with you at this international conference and to be part of this important milestone in CEE's history. 40 years as a leading environmental organisation on the national and international stage is a very significant achievement. CEE is recognised across the globe for its strategic vision in setting out the critical role environmental education has to play in taking action to tackle the three biggest challenges facing our world: climate change, biodiversity loss, and environmental pollution. I know that through this conference, CEE is aiming to set out a call to action for educators, policymakers, and communities to unite, harnessing the power of education to safeguard our planet. I mentioned the international stage, and CEE is, of course, a very important member of my organisation, the Foundation for Environmental Education, delivering our programmes in India and making a real impact for positive environmental change. As many of you will know, the Foundation for Environmental Education, or FEE for short, is the world's largest environmental education organisation, and with representation on every continent, our reach is truly global. FEE's global network currently has over 110 member organisations in 82 countries that operate one or more of the FEE programmes. FEE runs some of the most progressive environmental programmes in the world. We are dedicated to changing the way young people see and interact with their environment through our education programmes, Eco Schools, Eco Campus, Young Reporters for the Environment, and learning about ecosystems and forests. Our two sustainable tourism award programmes, Blue Flag and Green Key, are known around the world for their promotion of sustainable business practices and the protection of our valuable natural resources. We are at a highly significant moment in the history of our planet. Quoting President Obama, "We are the first generation to feel the impact of climate change and the last generation that can do something about it. This next decade will be our final chance to avert a climate catastrophe, turn the tide on pollution, and reverse biodiversity loss." That is why FEE launched our strategy, Gaia 2030, in 2021, focusing all our work through our projects and programs on empowering climate action, protecting global biodiversity, and reducing environmental pollution. The actions that we take in delivering these goals are as important for people as they are for nature. They continue to have positive effects on other sustainable development targets too, such as human health, poverty, gender equality, and social justice. All of us working together can and must use our knowledge, our expertise, our passion to help people to understand the urgency, to understand what they can do to take action, to influence policymakers and the corporate world, and to join with others in partnership to deliver our shared goals. Business as usual is just not enough. We must extend our reach, build our networks, bring people with us, and make an ever-increasing impact. As David Attenborough said, it's surely our responsibility to do everything within our power to create a planet that provides a home, not just for us, but for all life on Earth. We should always have hope, and that hope is rooted in collective action. I would like to finish by saying how delighted I am that CEE is our member here in India. FEE worked very hard to bring CEE into the FEE family. Kartikeya was very measured and took his time before he decided that yes, FEE was right for him and for CEE. But CEE's leadership and innovation, educating and empowering people, has been outstanding and has had a huge impact for good. We look forward to a continuing long and fruitful partnership. Many congratulations to all of you at CEE, past and present, for your magnificent achievements over the last 40 years, and wishing you every success in your endeavours to protect our planet and our people into the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Leslie. May I now request Professor Atsufumi Yokoi to say a few words.
Hello everyone, Namaste. I'm Atsufumi Yokoi a Vice President of Okayama University for Global Engagement, and also UNESCO Chair in Research Education for Sustainable Development, ESD. First of all, I'd like to extend my heartfelt congratulations on the 40th anniversary of the CEE. So yesterday, I truly got inspired by every single person's story and achievement for more than 40 years. Absolutely wonderful, beautiful, and inspirational. So I'd like to do like this yesterday as I did for every single person. It's like Japanese style, by the way. But really, I'd like to respect for every single person's many more contributions for more than 40 years. Well, ESD is definitely important foundation, cornerstone to transform yourself and transform global society. Well, let me explain briefly about Okayama and Okayama University, because there are so many shared values between CEE and Okayama. As you might know, Japanese government proposed ESD in 2002 at the United Nations General Assembly, which was adopted safely and successfully. And from 2005, UNESCO and also United Nations University have worked together for it. You know, from 2005, as you know, to 2014, let's say, decade of ESD. So Okayama region was actually approved by the United Nations University in 2005, which is the beginning year of decade of ESD, which is really one of the oldest regional center of expertise on ESD. As you might know, there are so many, over 190 RCE across the globe, but the Okayama region is one of the oldest initial 7th RCE across the globe. But following this, Okayama University was approved by UNESCO headquarters as very first Asia's pioneering UNESCO chair in ESD in 2007. So since then, Okayama region and Okayama University, together with more than 250 organizations, have worked together for ESD, likewise CE. There are so many shared values through multi-stakeholder partnerships and also in an intergenerational solidarity manner, including youth. Yeah, definitely youth, very important. So my point is how to make a collective intelligence or collective intergenerational solidarity to move forward together for the well-being of humanity and planet of the Earth. Actually, Kartikeya and I meeting together in 2020 at the United Nations mandated University for Peace, UNU Peace in Costa Rica, because Kartikeya at that time was chairperson of Earth Charter International at the UNU Peace. And I am also council member at Earth Charter International at the UNU Peace. We really discussed how to transform global citizenships into planetary citizenship. I would say planetizenship. Not only focus on humanity, but also focus on planet of the Earth. So CE is definitely important inspirational institution across the globe for humanity and planet of the Earth. So, Okayama University, from now to the future, work together for CE, for planetizenship, toward more well-being of humanity and the planet of the Earth. And once again, youth is very important as a stakeholder at any decision-making processes to move forward through the intergenerational solidarity to co-create future we want. So once again, thank you very much for inviting myself to be part of this conference. I wish you all continued success, many more years to come. So I'd like to close my speech as using my following phrase from Mr. Kofi Annan, former United Nations General Secretary General, which is a very important phrase. So you are never, ever too young to lead and too old to run. So let's transform yourself and transform global society. Thank you very much for coming here.
Thank you, Professor Sufumi. Yep, I'm calling out the youth representative, Mansi Thakur.
Namaste everyone, good morning. And good morning everyone, distinguished guests, esteemed speakers and my fellow participants. It's an absolute honor to stand here today as a youth representative. But let me be honest, standing here also comes with a huge responsibility. After all, the decisions made today will define the kind of planet we, the youth, will inherit tomorrow. और as we often say, हमारे भविष्य का सवाल है. This conference on education for sustainability action is a powerful reminder of the role of education plays in solving the biggest challenges of our time: climate change, biodiversity loss, and pollution. But let's be real. Many of us, young generation, didn't grow up learning about these issues in schools. If I think, many Jen said, we think and we saw in these documentaries or in Instagram reels, we saw this kind of problems. But in a school education, the lack is there. That's where the problem begins. Education about the sustainability needs to be mainstream, not just a side subject. As we say in Hindi, जैसे घर में पानी ज़रूरी है, वैसे ही स्कूल में sustainability education पढ़ाना ज़रूरी है. Let me break this down in 3 simple points. As a youth, first we need inclusion. Climate education should be a part of every curriculum, from school to college. We need to teach not just the problems, but the solutions too. For example, why not make composting, planting trees and practical subject in schools? सिर्फ किताबों से बात नहीं बनेगी, actions भी चाहिए. Inspiration. Education should inspire us to take action. Let's connect students with real problems, nature projects, clean energy, innovations, and campaigns. Learning should be beyond 4 walls. Support. Youth are not just learners, we are also doers. We have ideas, energy, and creativity, but we need mentorship and resources to turn those ideas into impact. Let's create platforms that amplify youth-led solutions. I remember my elders saying, "Beta, ek पेड़ लगाओ तो तुम्हारी छाँव में कल पीढ़ियाँ बैठेगी." Today I realize how important that thought was, and the campus of CEE itself an example of that. But the time to plant a tree was yesterday. Now it's urgent. So as a youth, we are ready to act. The question, are you ready to listen? This conference by Center for Environment Education is a chance for all us as a policymaker, educators, leaders, and students who work together. Because education isn't just about passing exams. It's about passing a better planet to the next generation. And the conference goal is clear: to draft a comprehensive agenda that prioritizes global essential learning for a future generation. This agenda aims to equip up with this knowledge, skills, values, and necessary to achieve a sustainable development goals and create a better world for all. And as I conclude, I would like to extend my heartfelt gratitude to the Center for Environment Education for providing me with this incredible platform. I am deeply thankful to Karthik sir for his guidance and mentorship throughout this journey. To Madhvi ma'am, to my all colleagues, I appreciate their unwavering support and encouragement. And to my visionary teammates, I am grateful for their tireless effort to drafting and organizing the parallel sessions and drafting the agendas and everything. Their dedication and passion are truly inspiring. Thank you all for this opportunity. It's been an enriching experience that I will always cherish. Dhanyavad. Thank you.
Thank you, Mansi. May I request Professor Presha Ramsarup now?
Good morning, everyone. To all our good friends at the Center for Environmental Education, I am so privileged to have the opportunity today to represent all of my colleagues in Southern Africa. So I join you today as the representative, as the president of the Southern African Environmental Education Association, which is a 37-year-old association of environmental education representatives from 14 countries in Africa. And we have had a long association with the CEE. So I bring good wishes from colleagues at the ELRC. Hela sends her love to you. Colleagues at WESA and colleagues throughout the SADC region who are sending good wishes. Your legacy is remarkable, CEE. Your impactful innovation in the environmental education space, your resilience, and importantly, your ability to evolve over the last 4 decades is a real testament to the dynamic thinkers at the heart of the CEE. So today, your friends in Africa wish you well, and we join the international EE community in celebrating not just another CEE birthday, but celebrating another year of joining you in making a difference. Like in India, environmental education and education for sustainability in the SADC region is not a nice to have. We are all facing a crisis that's a political crisis, an economic, ecological, humanitarian, a food crisis, water crisis, land crisis, economic crisis, and a social justice crisis that is involving the most vulnerable in resilience building. And while we all have been working really hard over the last many decades, and we have inspiring centers like CEE, like WESA that Jim comes from, and many of you here know Jim well, that have inspired young people. We are standing in a space now where we have to face the reality that the directionality of the transition, the sustainability transition, has left poverty and inequality intact. The directionality of the current transition is showing us that we need a much more radical, a much more disruptive whole system approach to how we think about sustainability action as we plan the future. What we do right now matters. And that's what I want to leave you with today. We're standing in a space where we have to rethink the environmental education work. So as you think, as we all think about the ESD work that we plan, I would like to leave an important message. How are we centralizing justice? Because if we don't centralize the most marginalized, we will always replicate issues of poverty and inequality. And centralizing justice in how we think about change processes helps us to ask important questions. Who decides what kinds of transitions are needed? How are different groups included in decision-making and processes? Who benefits and loses in change processes? How are benefits distributed and losses mitigated? Okay? It's by asking and raising these kinds of justice questions that the significance issues around justice are centralized in the way we think about and shape change initiatives. And how we think about it will shape how we think about the kind of education. And if we want a transformative just transition that is expansive in its distributional impacts and justice and its intent and its outcomes, inclusive of the marginalized communities, then we must adopt a more systemic, transformative, and transgressive approach to the way we think about education, skills development, as well as basic community education. So, my friends, when we're thinking about sustainability actions, we need to think about where classrooms, we have a lot of experience with teachers, workplaces, workers, youth, fishermen in villages. The spaces for learning and the justice questions are raising important questions for us. So I'll stop there. And as we move towards a green, just economy and society, I'd like to leave the question of where are the points of justice in our change processes? Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Presha. I would like to request Sri Sanjay Kumarji to deliver his inaugural address. So.
See if I can, yes. Thank you, Madhaviji. The chairperson of CEE, Shri Ashok Khoslaji, Shri Kartike Sarabhai, our distinguished colleagues on the dais, and all our colleagues who have joined us this morning. We are celebrating 40 years of CEE, and how it's in the fitness of things that we have linked it up with educating for sustainability action. 40 years of sustainable action, and I wish you, Kartikeji, many more years of sustainable action. You know, you started and you mentioned about the fire in Los Angeles. We've been seeing horrific pictures of how nature is demonstrating the kind of climate change we are seeing. And more often than not, whenever you see the interface between nature and mankind, we always have to retreat. And I think this power equation will have to be kept in mind. Then when there is nature and us, we are a small part of nature, and we have evolved over millions of years of time within that larger confines of the nature. And it's not surprising that in India, we always call nature as Mother Nature, and we call Earth as our mother. That, to a certain extent, it defines the kind of a relationship we have with our larger environment. Last time, Kartikeji had come to meet me, and he mentioned that some of the things we will be discussing today would be global warming, climate change, how loss of biodiversity is taking place all across the world, and of course, pollution. And I think if you just look back, you'll find that all the three things are related to each other, and each sustains the other, and we need to break the cycle somewhere to be able to regain control of the kind of things we would want to do. You know, today is also 9th of January, and we celebrated it as Pravasi Bharatiya Divas. In 2015, Mahatma Gandhi came back from South Africa to Mumbai. Today, the Honorable Prime Minister is in Bhubaneswar, and the Pravasi Bharatiya Divas is being celebrated there. And in Ahmedabad, who can forget Gandhiji? And he mentioned that in Mother Nature, there is everything for our need, but not for our greed. And this juxtaposition of need and greed is extremely important for us, and we must keep it in my mind. You know, as Secretary, School Education, I get a little worried. We are already seeing telltale signatures of the kind of things which are happening all around us. On an average, we work for 220 days a year. And now I'm seeing that because of exigencies of the situation, perhaps led by weather, we are having to shut down our schools for almost 20 to 25 days in a year. In the month of September, Assam shut down its school because of extreme heat. Imagine in the month of September. But then we are seeing it. But then the larger picture is, if we are shutting down our schools for 20 days in a year, and if you take this over a period of 10 years, 200 days. So in 10 years, you are already having climate-induced learning loss of 1 year. Can we afford it? That is the larger question. Where are we now? In India, we have 18% of world population, and we have 4% of water. We are a water-stressed society. We are a 4 trillion economy as of now, USD, and we are aspiring, and the Honorable Prime Minister has given the clarion call for Viksit Bharat 2047, where we are seeing that we will be at 32 trillion in 2047. So the journey is from 4 to 32 trillion. How are we going to navigate this journey? How is the transition, the energy transition going to take place? So much so, when you have such a strong correlation between the GDP and the way you consume energy. Where are the resources going to come from? Our resources are already stretched, and we are seeing a resource depletion. So again, this long journey has to see the kind of resource management. It has to also see the energy management. Some part of it will come from renewable energy, perhaps non-renewable component will go down, but then energy transition to a very large extent would make a very strong interface with geopolitics, which we need to understand. And this geopolitics has to be understood by every person in the country who we are aspiring to rise to that particular level. You know, we in India, I think we are eminently placed to do all these things because something in our culture always makes us ready for that. It is part of our DNA. And we have always looked at ourselves as part of nature and not something beyond nature. So we are very comfortable with that. And I'm just going to read something from the Inaugural, which declares that sparkling water, open space, hills and forests constitute a fortress. That is our defense and protection. While the Subhasistas, these are the wise sayings, they remind us that trees are like good people. While they themselves stand in the scorching sun, they provide shade and fruit for others. So this is the way we look at nature, and I think for us to evolve an idea of sustainability is extremely good. And I think recycling, reusing things have always been part of the Indian culture. Somehow, because of the fact that we were developing and we've been looking all around us, we have lost this inner trait of ours which needs to be brought back in our system. We've always been masters of reusing and, living with economy and living at peace with nature. Coming back to the main theme of the 3-day workshop we are going to have, that how do we use education for sustainable actions? And I think this is extremely important if we are going to grow as a country and grow into a developed country. India has one of the largest and perhaps the most complex education system in the world. We have 14.6 lakh schools, we have 98 lakh teachers, and 25 crore children, 250 million children go to our schools from class 1 to 12th. It's a great opportunity, and I would say that all of us who are sitting here facing each other essentially at the heart of it, we are all essentially creatures of education. We are where we are because of the kind of education we've had, the schools where we went, met people, and developed a worldview. And this is the worldview which needs to be given and bequeathed to all our children who are part of our schools. I'm very happy to say that the National Education Policy 2020, it addresses this issue. And it says, and I quote, among the learners a deep-rooted pride in being Indian. This is what the NEP is supposed to develop. And dispositions that support responsible commitment to sustainable development and living, unquote. And guided by this, we have come out with a national curriculum framework for school education. And in pursuance to that, we are developing the curriculum and the textbooks. And I'm very happy to say that Kartikeji is a very important member of this curricular action group, which has been given the responsibility for developing these books. I think in your packet, there is a book which has been given by the UNESCO, which was released last year, and we were all part of it. It does delineate and outlines the way we are going to do it for our schools. So, but curriculum is one thing, it is part of the theory which is there in these schools. How are we going to translate that theory into action? That is the major point. And what we are doing is that most of our schools have had an eco club. And last year, we tweaked and we broadened the scope of these eco clubs. So now we call them Eco Club for Mission Life. And when the COP21 took place at Glasgow, the Honorable Prime Minister gave this Mission Life concept for us, which is based on 7 broad principles of conservation and sustainability. So how do I take this curriculum and the textbooks and the practical aspect of it gets converted and implemented by children when they do it and they learn by hand, doing it with their hands? That is the question. And I would leave this broader question to you, that when you deliberate on this issue, you may like to discuss and crystallize the way these Eco Club for Mission Life can use the theory part which is there in the books, make it practical for their children, so they become conscious of the larger ecosystem of which they are a part, and start seeing things as to how important it is to save energy, how important it is to reduce waste, how important it is to conserve water, and how water, which is at the basis of every aspect of life, how important it is for us. These are the questions which need to be done. And in fact, Kartikeji, I'll be very happy if you can come out and you can share with us some kind of a blueprint by this idea in the books gets translated for this particular club. And we can take this further and we could start implementing it so the children can learn by doing things, or you start having a basic understanding of the nature of which we are a part. The last thing I would want to say is that, on a very philosophical note, I would say that I think there needs to be a paradigm shift in our thought processes also. The way our economies have developed over the years, consumption has become something extremely aspirational. And the more you consume, the better you are. And it's a self-reinforcing cycle. I don't know to what extent we can sustain this on a long period of time, especially when everyone is growing, everyone is aspiring to consume more and more. And there are geopolitics built around it, that some would consume less, some would consume more. There are advantages of having reached the developed stage earlier, which perhaps may not be made available to the others. So this is a continuing struggle amongst all ourselves. But the larger philosophical question is that, can we think of a paradigm shift in our thinking as to what development constitutes? Can we move away from consumption and perhaps look at something else which is extremely aspirational or equally aspirational to which we look forward to, which is a little lighter on nature? We need to live lightly on this earth. We need to lead a life which is harmonious with nature, and we need to live a life which also recognizes the dignity of just about everyone. You know, I was watching Life on Earth, and in the end, in the last episode of it, Richard Attenborough says that this is the earth which we share with just about everyone. The insects, the plants, the animals, and I think there's a much larger message there. Let us learn to coexist, share our needs, move away from our greed, and perhaps think of a new paradigm for economic development. I think we will do it very, very sustainably. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, Sanjay Kumarji. We now have two books to be released, and I'll call upon the first book by Dr. Naresh Tyagi. He is the Chief Sustainability Officer with Aditya Birla Fashion and Retail Limited, and is a sought-after leader, speaker, and advisor in various think tanks, industry platforms, and academic forums. He's here with us. Welcome, Dr. Naresh Tyagi ji. About the book, it is called Sustainable Promises, Harmonizing Horizons, and it is a compilation of stories from different periods, serving as a reminder of our rich heritage, and it aims to bridge the past and present, highlighting the ancient wisdom that continues to influence our identity. I would request the team to please quickly come up, and we can release the book. Request Shri Sanjay Kumarji to release the book. Can the team please come up? Quickly. Thank you. The next book, I would request Mamta Pandya and Meena Raghunathan, who are CE colleagues, former CE colleagues, and to mention a little about the book, and we'll release that book as well.
Thank you for this opportunity. Between Mamta and me, we have spent 50 years, 5 decades at CE. And we've been inspired by people that we met here, a number of whom are around, number of whom are not here or not with us. So we thought to put this down. Disclaimer, it's a purely personal labor of love from our perspectives, how we interacted with those people and how they influenced us. But it's also a kind of history of sustainability in the country, simply because we were around from 1984. Thank you.
Dr. Khosla, we request you to give your closing remarks for the morning.
Okay. What a great morning it has been, and what a great privilege to hear so much deep knowledge, wisdom, and above all, passion, which is basically the product of CEE that we are trying to sell, if you like, instead of the consumerism that the chief guest just talked about. First of all, I'm most grateful for the chief guest, Mr. Sanjay Kumar, and all the other, I'm not a rock star, otherwise I would put it in my mouth, but I'm sure you can hear me now. We are very privileged to have had such an eminent, deeply thought through set of speakers this morning, and you can see why I feel so privileged to be associated with this wonderful organization. The basic idea that we need to get across to the world through its young people, school children and youth, is that there is a need for efficiency in what we do, in doing more with less, but also there's a need for sufficiency of the Gandhian type that several speakers talked about. Sufficiency as a ceiling to prevent us transgressing the outer limits of the planet, and sufficiency in the form of floors where, as our eminent speaker from South Africa was saying, that everyone's entitled to at least a decent life. So the word sufficiency is very complex. I'm writing a book on the subject right now, which covers really the two extremes of neither too much nor too little. Humans are entitled to a decent life, and not just one or a few, not the 1%, nor the few, but everyone. So this is the message of CEE, and we hope that we can all together carry it forward. It's been a privilege for me personally to be involved with this organization for several years, and we've talked about the last 40 last evening and today, and now from this afternoon till tomorrow and day after, we will be talking about the next 40 years, where I think CEE will be going from strength to strength. By the end, I need to do 2 or 3 quick things. One is, I recognize that in my present physical shape, nobody would give me a job as a runway model. But I'm going to show you something that was produced by CEE as a part of its Education for Action. And that is my jacket, which is made out of Coke bottles, recycled Coke bottles. And I hope you like it. It's made by CEE, And the mastermind sitting, hiding behind that tree, Mr. Sodhi, who gave it to me a few weeks ago when we met at Goa. So I just want you to know it is possible to do things differently. And although, as I say, I'm not an ideal model for it, I want you to see that it is very beautiful. I'm going to ask Kartike to invite our colleagues from CEE to stand up so everybody can see them.
So this journey has really been possible because of so many people who have spent their time and life in getting this center to where it is. So may I just request all people from CE, present and past, to just stand up where they are so we can just recognize everyone. In some forums I might be the face of it, but I can tell you that's it. We have several people. And the board members, please. And finally, all our friends and colleagues, which is every one of you. So just get up for a second and we recognize this partnership. Thank you. Just as a mark of respect, we want to give it.
We would like to present case, it is called in Gujarati, as a mark of respect to all the guests on the dais.
हेस बोलते हैं हेस
United for tea. We now everyone is invited to tea, which is going up the ramp. People will show you where the rest is. So let's go, and then we start the formal technical sessions thereafter. So please, we can all start going to tea.
The tea is served at the food court. Just look out for colleagues in badges which are with yellow line, and I think they'll be able to guide you. It's at the food court where we had dinner yesterday, just next to it. Requesting colleagues to please guide the guests. And we'll be assembling at the auditorium for the next plenary, which is starting in half an hour. 30 minutes from now.
Nicely done.